So, you've apologized in public, candle in hand, and barely survived the humiliation. But what if your shame wasn't displayed through words, but through your head? More specifically, your hair. Because in 18th century France, even your hairstyle could land you in hot legal water. Yes, welcome to the era of powdered wigs, secret hair laws, and one of the oddest courtroom debates in fashion history. Who legally owned your wig? Now, if you're imagining those towering, snow-white hairpieces perched like frosted cakes on people's heads, you're spot on. Wigs were more than fashion, they were statements. Class markers, power props, and at times, community fire hazards. Seriously, they were flammable. But aside from being itchy status symbols, wigs became a surprisingly frequent subject in court records. Why? Because the value of a wig rivaled that of livestock, and if someone stole one, well, it wasn't just petty theft. It was practically grand larceny. Oh, here's the weird part. In some regions of France during this time, wigs weren't considered part of your person. That is to say, if you were wearing it and someone yanked it off and ran into the night, wig flapping behind them like a confused seagull, it wasn't technically an assault. Just theft, but only if they grabbed the wig. If they pulled your actual hair, different crime altogether. Legal scholars debated this absurd distinction with a straight face, often using terms like portative, portable property, to describe these detachable crowns. This led to court cases that hinged entirely on whether the wig was affixed with combs, glue, or pins. Because if it was pinned tight enough, some judges argued it was basically part of your body. Pulling it would be like tearing off a fingernail. Painful, personal, assault. But if it was loosely set, fluffed on for the evening like a hat, then tough luck, monsieur. Just property. Recoverable, yes, but not criminal in the same way. This legal gray area opened up endless possibilities for lawyers and thieves alike. One famous case from the late 1700s involved a disgruntled apprentice who, after being dismissed without pay, stormed into a crowded Parisian cafe, snatched his master's expensive wig from his powdered dome, and bolted into the night. The court spent 3 sessions debating whether the act constituted an attack or simply unauthorized transfer of property. Imagine sitting in that courtroom, listening to powdered men argue over whether a sweaty wig was sacred bodily territory. The apprentice was eventually fined but not imprisoned because, as the ruling stated, the wig was worn, not bound. Historians still argue whether these cases were really about wigs or about the larger question of dignity. After all, your wig wasn't just hair. It was social armor. Wearing a good one meant you belonged, and losing it in public? Instant humiliation. Think of it like your 18th century LinkedIn profile getting ripped off your head. Poof, gone. Suddenly you're just a guy with thinning hair and no prospects. And the laws didn't stop at theft. There were sumptuary regulations, yes, literal laws, on who could wear certain kinds of wigs. In some provinces, laws dictated that only nobility could wear wigs above a certain height or adorned with specific flourishes, like powdered ribbon curls or ostrich feathers. Commoners caught flouting these rules could be fined or even publicly reprimanded. Picture this. A baker's assistant in Lyon gets hauled into court because his wig had too much bounce. The horror. But here's the kicker. These laws weren't just enforced by police or magistrates. Sometimes entire neighborhood associations took it upon themselves to monitor wig compliance. There were reports of vigilante wig checkers, older women and church wardens, usually, who'd spot a particularly lush coiffure and confront the wearer. "Too fine for your station, monsieur," they'd mutter, eyebrows raised. Imagine being legally wig-shamed on the cobbled streets of Bordeaux. Talk about losing face. And then there were the fake wigs. Oh yes, a thriving underground wig market boomed in the latter half of the century. Smuggled hair, often stolen from graves or cut from impoverished women in nearby countries, was sold to unscrupulous wig makers who created black market perukes at a fraction of the cost. These counterfeit wigs were banned, of course, but banning only made them more desirable. Whispers of Hungarian hair, one magistrate lamented in a provincial report, have infiltrated our noble salons. The powdered wig, that absurd confection of vanity, thus became a legal labyrinth. Some cities began requiring wig makers to keep receipts and record the sources of their hair. Guilds were formed, licenses issued. One poor fellow was imprisoned for selling wigs made from horsehair disguised as exotic Eastern weave. Whether or not buyers knew, and whether they cared, is still up for debate. Of course, all this fuss about wigs also reveals the deep anxiety about identity at the time. In a society increasingly obsessed with appearances, where your class, worth, and even trustworthiness were judged at a glance, a wig was no joke. It was your calling card, your disguise, your armor. And anything that threatened it, be it a street thief, a wig-snatching prankster, or a meddling inspector, was treated as a menace. By the late 1780s, though, the wig's golden age was beginning to crumble, literally and symbolically. The revolution was stirring. People were growing tired of artificiality. The powdered elite began to look ridiculous rather than respectable. There's even record of one revolutionary pamphlet that mocked aristocrats as walking mannequins of hair and lies. Ouch! Slowly, wigs were traded for more natural hairstyles. And with them, all the laws, courts, and drama surrounding them began to fade. But during their reign, wigs ruled more than heads. They occupied courts, dictated fashion, and shaped some of the weirdest laws France ever passed. So next time you see an old painting and chuckle at the sky-high wig perched atop some noble's head, remember, beneath that tower of curls was a legal headache that few dare to mess with. Now, let's slip off the powder dome and slide into something even stranger: the laws that governed who could sing and when.